Welcome to the Res Pseudo Orbis channel, and this is your weekly live stream host, Lucius Aurelian, and we are going back to look at the Vatican mystery, or more specifically, the necropolis under the Vatican. I'd like to extend a welcome to all viewers, prime explorers, and all others joining us for this very intriguing exploration. And the Vatican definitely brings about many mysteries to it. There's something about it that's always very compelling, and for whatever reason, a lot of attention seems to be directed to it. So during this little exploration, we're going to be looking at some of these mysteries, and at the end, we're going to be examining the various theories that we have. Now, we do have many theories about the Vatican, but when we do this exploration, I want to try to play it straight initially, look at what the official historical account tells us, and then as we look at some of these images, you're going to get the impression that what these images tell us is very similar and yet very different to the account that we have. And really just looking at them directly, you can get an idea of what it's really saying. Now, you may or may not have been to the Vatican in the middle of Rome, and here you can actually see the original circle that we've looked at before with our wondrous obelisk that originated in Egypt, and it's been moved around many times. And so right off the bat, we have quite the historical account. And remember, Rome is considered the eternal city. It was originally the capital of the so-called Roman Empire, and we have a lot of things that are aligned with it. And there's a lot of historiosity, that's official history, that's connected to Rome. Well, when we go through this, you're going to find out that things might be a little bit more questionable than we like to believe. Now, we are looking from St. Peter's Basilica here. And here's another image of the square, or the circle, or all the other different names that we have for it. And this just gives you an idea of some of the size of the columns and the people going along. And of course, the obelisk movement story is always very intriguing because apparently you could just load an obelisk on a boat and take it across the Mediterranean. It was no problem. Did something similar in New York City with good old Cleopatra's Needle, or all the other different names we have for random obelisks that are all over the place because, you know, we have to have a historical account for how the obelisk got from point A to point B. St. Peter's Basilica, another wonder of the Renaissance. Now, does anybody remember who was responsible for designing this incredible dome officially? Because it wasn't exactly the easiest thing to build. I know I'm just diving right into this because we have a lot to cover, so please excuse me if I'm not engaging in the normal pleasantries, and rest assured I will when we get to the theories. But does anybody remember who was responsible for pulling off this dome? Albie's on it. Yes, Michelangelo. Michelangelo apparently did everything in the Renaissance and affiliated with the Vatican. And then the notorious Mr. D. Yeah, you're leaning ahead in the foxhole. We will be getting to that. So right now we're just starting with St. Peter's Basilica because technically, officially, that's where the necropolis is found under. But it was constructed by, or at least the dome was designed by Michelangelo. You know, I'm kind of surprised they didn't say that Michelangelo didn't design and build it all with his bare hands over, you know, a period of 150 years, and he actually lived longer. Oh, that's a good point. How did they make those perfect columns without lathes, says F in the chat. Great question, and I have that question every time we see perfect columns anywhere, whether it's the Vatican or St. Louis in the United States or, you know, there's no limitations on the locations. So we start with St. Peter's Basilica. Now, the official history says that St. Peter's Basilica was over St. Peter's tomb, although the actual certification of St. Peter's tomb is somewhat in question. Now, the church itself and the Pope, Paul VI, the individual who's responsible for building that really interesting papal auditorium we're going to be looking at later, or at least commissioning it, he stated that they did certify that they found St. Peter's bones. You know, the original Peter the Apostle, one of the 12 with Jesus, and also one of the early significant leaders in the church. That's why St. Peter's Basilica is named after him. And yes, I know I'm not going into details here, okay? There are a few different accounts. Yes, you can cite the Bible, and you can cite the fact that Peter is considered one of the most holy leaders in the early church. That's what the history says, and that's why there's a basilica named after him. But what are your thoughts when you look at the interior of St. Peter's Basilica? And what does it really strike within? And it's really good to see everybody joining us. Kathy says, I'm calling BS in that story. Yeah, there's a lot of little details to it. And Albie says, biggest basilica in the world. Yes, technically it is. Now there are certain structures that compete for height, but when you're talking about raw volume, cubic space on the inside, it is very impressive. I am Kairos, built by a computer. It may well be, or perhaps something even more advanced than what we think of as a computer. But it does give you that impression, doesn't it? A lot of geometric precision behind it. And so this is St. Peter's, built in the Renaissance. It's been with us for several hundred years, and the amazing things that we can do. Now, here we come across our first significant individual in this story, and before we go and actually look into the necropolis, the catacombs underneath St. Peter's Basilica, we have to look at the account of Pope Pius XII. Originally born Eugenio Pacelli, and I'm probably butchering the first name because I've been switching back and forth from Italian to French to Spanish, so Eugenio Pacelli, who was Pope Pius XII, and he was Pope during a very significant time of transition and also during World War II. And during my initial entry into academia, there was a book called The Man with the Mustache is Pope. It was actually called something else, but I'm just going to play it safe and not even say the name. He came under a lot of criticism for not doing enough to help people in dire need during World War II, whether they were refugees or individuals who were being persecuted, specifically the Jewish population of Germany and the other areas that Germany had conquered during World War II. Remember, we're going off the official historical account here, so we're not questioning anything yet. But official history says that his legacy was not to be questioned, and even though there was a lot of difficulty, especially in the late 1990s when that book came out, and there was a lot of academic debate, his official reputation is solidified, and yet he has not been beatified or made into a saint, as it were. All the lovely terms behind it. But what's interesting about Pope Pius XII is that while this war was going on, while he was in this very difficult position, which to be fair he was, if we take everything at face value, they still had time to excavate these catacombs. And prior to this, they had never certified that the bones of St. Peter were actually under St. Peter's, or at least in the tomb. I mean, they say they knew the tomb was there, and they wrecked the necropolis we're about to look at and building the original St. Peter's. And of course, we're talking 1st to the 3rd century. And once again, I'll use that Midwestern term. It's a big hand wave because, get this, historians aren't sure. The Vatican's not sure, even though they have all the records. So take that with a grain of salt, whatever it actually means. What I find interesting, though, is there are other pictures of Pope Pius XII that are very lovely colorized pictures. And these are attributed to the early 1940s, circa 1940, 1941. Now, oftentimes we think, well, was color photography really available in the early 40s? Well, yes, it was. And was color film available in the early 1940s? Well, yes, it was. Especially if you recall the film that John Ford was making about Pearl Harbor. He originally started in color, but because they said color was a little too Hollywood then, he turned it to black and white. Now, what are your thoughts on the account of this individual and what we're looking at initially? Trays, they don't know. Yeah, that's true. Jamie Griffin, Pius my ASS. Yeah, that's true. Chassis, you build it, they will come. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, boy. Roman nose, yeah, I could definitely see that. Now, what's interesting about Pope Pius XII, beyond everything we just shared, is he was also involved in a lot of the early, how shall we say, political involvement of the Catholic Church, because you may recall that up until the 1920s, this other guy, I think I can say his name, Mr. Benito Mussolini, he was the one who organized the Lateran Treaty, and this gave the Catholic Church the Vatican back, because the Kingdom of Italy in the 1800s had actually taken all the papal lands. And this guy was just involved everywhere. Here's the very interesting picture drawing of when he was Eugenio before he became Pope Pius XII as a child. So you can see we all started off as children at some point. But then you have these other interesting photos and these very unique colorized photos. Now, is this an actual photo? Is this a black and white photo that was colorized subsequently? It's hard to tell. And it's almost as though they want to confuse the account, so we really can't certify anything. But like I said, what's intriguing about Pope Pius XII is he was busy dealing with all the challenges of World War II, and we would expect that to be a very busy job. And yet they still made the time and the effort to begin excavating the catacombs, specifically the necropolis, under St. Peter's Basilica. And this is probably one of the most telling images. I mean, this almost looks like a modern image in some respect. No, it's not HD, but very impressive with the image quality here. And this is another one of these early 1940s images. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this is as we begin our exploration and look at the necropolis, or the catacombs beneath St. Peter's Basilica, you're going to find that there's a mix of some black and white photos and some colorized images. And I think it's always important that we remember that when we look at images and we're doing image analysis to see how accurate they really are. And some of these comments are very, very interesting. So, hey, Petty, looks like a Viewmaster pick. Yeah, I would agree with that. It does look like a Viewmaster pick. I am Kairos. Dig, dig. Hey, look at all these bones. Yes. So, very intriguing that they did all this. And there's also another period of transition for the Catholic Church. It was called the Vatican II, or the Second Vatican Council. We'll talk about that in a little bit, in which there may have been some changes. Anyway, so without further delay, the moment you've all been waiting for, we're going to dive right on into the look below St. Peter's. Now, does anybody know what the actual stated history of St. Peter's Basilica really is? Give me one moment here and I'll get the image up. And I just want to why don't you share with me, what are your first impressions? Just discarding everything you know or think you know about the Catholic Church, and I know that's difficult, and or the Vatican. What are your initial impressions when you see an image like this? And do you know what you're actually looking at here? And if you don't, that's okay. Just go off of what your first impressions are and share it in the comments. It was time to reveal the mass ritual sacrifice underground. Well, you're kind of reading ahead there, Julia S., but yes, we're actually going to see that in very painstaking detail, so just be patient. Sky Sage, Enlightenment. Donna Marie, tacky and beautiful. Yeah, I could kind of see that mix. And Jamie says it looks ghoulish. KC933, an altar. Yes, of a kind. Some are saying it's a portal. So officially, this is the tomb of St. Peter's. And underneath here is the crypt, the necropolis, where they found St. Peter's bones. Now, even more interestingly enough, Pope Pius XII, when they found St. Peter's bones, they said they couldn't verify if it was St. Peter's bones. But then Pope Paul VI in the 1960s said, yes, it is certifiable that it is St. Peter's bones. Although then the mainstream in science says they never provided any scientific evidence to this. Now, how they could is beyond me. I mean, were the Romans keeping DNA records or something of St. Peter? You know, was there a DNA record? Did somebody know what his DNA looked like and they could do a sample or a test? I have no idea. I mean, they never talk about these things in detail. But this marks the tomb within the Church of St. Peter's Basilica. And yeah, you kind of see a mix of styles within this. And so that's where you have to start asking the questions, you know, were there multiple owners, users of this building, different powers? I mean, officially, this has always been the Catholic Church from the time the structure was constructed. But is that really what we're seeing when we look at the images? Well, I leave that to you to come to the conclusions of. But those are the kind of questions we have to ask. And thoughts on what we have back here, this, I almost dare say, this sun icon. But that's what it looks like from this perspective. When you really go there, you'd be surprised at how many different perspectives and the way things look in different color. It's quite intriguing. Philippi, nice looking style. Sky Sage, estuaries. Oh, yes. Albie, well, Peter was killed in that place. That's why they built the basilica there, and it's called St. Peter. Yes, that's exactly what the official history says, Albie. You are correct. And we'll look at the map and see what used to be there prior to them building that. Sydney says it looks Gothic. Yeah, it does have a bit of a Gothic touch to it, doesn't it? And Jamie says an eye. Yes, there are some people that say that the sun looks like an eye. So let's move on. And right now we're at the surface level. But now we're going to go to the subsurface. And we're entering the necropolis, or the catacombs, you know, different names, but place where they buried the dead. And what are your thoughts on this particular image that we have? Now, in full disclosure, I have been to the Vatican, but it was a long time ago. And so, some things from memory, anything that I can certify seeing, I will. I do not recall seeing this, but this is a certified image from that initial excavation. And what are your thoughts on how that compared to what we just looked at? Is this what you'd expect to see? Sky Sage says it very nicely, Underworld. Yes. What is the material? Concrete? I have no idea. You know, whether it's concrete, whether it's an advanced polymer, you get the impression of everything and nothing when you go there. I mean, it really feels like it's many different materials. And of course, you could attribute that officially to the fact that there are many people involved with it. Stabulator, that's a good comment. It looks basic and clean. Yes, it does. Not exactly what we'd expect catacombs to look like. And Donna Marie had a good one right there. Donna Marie says looks way older. I agree with that. It definitely looks way older. Looks flammable. Yeah, well, you know, anything could be flammable back from the distant ancient times. You know, whether you want to say that was the 1800s, the 1400s, or, you know, the 2nd century, whatever the heck that really is. So, kind of a very clean look, and I agree, it does look very organized, and, you know, did they actually clean it out? Now, you're looking at this image because this is one of the photographs that they took in the 1950s, because they started this excavation in the 40s, and then the official photo record comes from the 50s. Is that what actually happened? I do not know. That's what we're informed happened. And so just keep that in mind. Now, when you look at some of these other catacombs, or the necropolis, and these are again our official photos, this is from the excavation in the 1950s. And remember, these were all colorized photos. Now, color photo was starting to come more into mainstream use, if you will, at least according to the official historical account. But I'll say this, and I know you may be surprised, I was not there in the 1950s, so I don't know. But does this really look like what we'd expect a necropolis or a catacomb to look like? I mean, what does this really look like? What do you think? And we're now under St. Peter's officially. RB, I'm wondering where all the bones are. Oh, don't worry, RB. We got plenty of bones to see here before too long. Just a warning to everybody. Opie, destruction. Yeah. Oppie, if I'm saying that right. Robert Yako, fake. Robert, do you think it might be fake? Why would anybody want to show fake photos of what's under St. Peter's Basilica? Chassis, it looks like a place I wouldn't go alone. No, and I would not suggest going to the Vatican alone, surface or subsurface, but that's just me. Donna Marie, oh, I'm a baby in its apartments. Yeah, well, you never know. Could well be. Brian, St. Peter's 90210. Hey, don't give him any ideas now. I might have a show there. Abandoned. Yeah, it does look like it's been abandoned for a long time. Oh, interesting comment here from Petty. Maybe, maybe not. Let's look at some more. Now, here's where you start to see a little bit of a mix of styles here. And you really have to ask what's going on, because you see this mix of materials that were obviously used. You know, are these crypts? Are these coffins? What exactly are these? And when you look a little closer, you start to see figures that you certainly do not associate with the Roman Catholic Church, but you do associate with Roman mythology. In other words, these look like these could be figures at the inside or interior of any United States state capitol, right? Because, you know, we're all about putting those kind of figures on our state capitals in the United States for various reasons. You know, the United States is a Christian nation, or at least it was when they built those state capitals. You know, it's I shouldn't say it that way, but you find yourself challenged when they tell you things like that about the 1800s. Then you actually go in and you look at these state capitals, and none of these things meet your expectations. And I think it's when you start to look and notice the details. I mean, what do we have here? Does anybody know what this creature is called? KC933. Yep, Centaur. Julie S. Holy Centaurs, Batman. Quite a few of them. Yes. You know, and I'm not here to tell you what to think about all this. And Robert's right. We don't know the veracity or authenticity of these pictures, but it is interesting what they're showing us, because they do tell us that, yes, this necropolis, these crypts, whatever you want to call them, were originally constructed when the Romans were still in power, the official Roman Empire, or the Western Roman Empire as it came to be called, not that the names matter. But oddly enough, you see many things on them when you look in the details that don't speak of Rome. And it gets even more questionable as you look further within. Because oddly enough, you have this strange mix of mosaics and then other interesting materials. I mean, what is going on up here? You know, is this something they added later? I mean, this doesn't seem like anything we'd associate with Roman mythology. I don't know, maybe. You know, you have all these birds or these paintings done later. And again, it's a fair question. Is this actually under St. Peter's? I mean, these are certified photos from when they excavated it once World War II was over and they had the time to document it, because apparently they'd already excavated it and found these bones. But it creates many more questions in terms of what's really going on. Now look at how well preserved this mosaic is and what it was clearly under. How could a mosaic be that well preserved? Little questions. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. What are your thoughts? Donna Marie, I was at City Hall. It's all Greek, but they would be tripping balls there. Where's the purple? Hail Medea. Fairy Girl, the whole of Rome looks like this underneath. Absolutely right, Fairy Girl. And we will be taking a look at more catacombs. This isn't the only one. I am Kairos, stack of Sims. Ooh, miss me with it. Kind of looks like something you'd find in the Middle East. Yeah. And that'd be attributed to the fact, well, the Roman Empire got further east. That's what historians will try to tell you. Atom bomb. Each level is a different remnant of previous eras. And that could be the various truth that we're looking at right here, Brother Adam. For all we know. And RB, mixed media. Yes. And keep all mixed media in mind here as we go further in this exploration. Because you see even more confusing things. Such as this interesting painting, mosaic. I mean, what was it originally? I don't know. It looks like it's been damaged. Officially, they say these are Amazons. But how would that, again, make any sense? Unless we have a mosaic that's from Roman times. I mean, and what the heck is this creature right here? Is this their pet armadillo? I have no idea. I mean, I wonder what's missing on the rest of this mosaic. And something else I'll ask you to keep in mind. How many places have we explored in places we wouldn't expect? Like, say, the United States. We have that gigantic mosaic in the Iowa State Capitol that I always love looking at. And yet we have mosaics in other places, like the Basilica, the Basilica Cathedral of St. Louis in St. Louis, Missouri. And they have that massive mosaic that they say they just threw up there in the 80s. But what's really going on here? Very odd imagery, and again, not what we would expect to find, is it? I like looking at Rome, but to me, Moscow is where we should be looking. Well, we have looked at Moscow, but you know what? That might be another good live stream right there, so thanks for mentioning it. So, Brian, I think that is an armadillo. Yeah, I mean, I was just spitballing there, Brian. I mean, I have no idea what the heck it is, so. In any event, so let's go on to the next one. Now, here's where you go back to the black and white photos. So either they didn't colorize these, or were these actual excavation photos, or they're looking at something else. Again, I don't know. But you get some more interesting conflicting accounts with this, such as some of the imagery that you have over here. And again, what are all these materials? And what's this guy doing? I mean, is he just yelling at this worker here saying, hey, shine the light over there. I think I see another mosaic or a fresco. And that's where you get a little bit of the conflicting account between the photos themselves. Now, keep in mind, these are all stated to be photos from that exact time. So, Ooh. Liger. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. That's a good one. Yeah, good call out there. Old bricks. And you will see a lot of old bricks all around Rome. It's much easier to develop black and white versus color. And isn't it interesting that they would go to the trouble to develop color at those times? So, PJCC West, the damage to mosaics is often suspiciously intentional looking. I would agree with that completely. And it's interesting what they had scraped off on this mosaic. I mean, who knows what else is on here? Could be more clues that we can't get. And then you have other images like this. Now, supposedly he's cleaning off this stone right here. And again, what kind of materials do you have? I mean, we're looking at the images. And again, this is supposed to be under St. Peter's Basilica. But you also have to ask the question, how exactly would the foundation of a place like that operate if it was built on a very shaky foundation? Because they've never reported any problems with the foundation of St. Peter's. And then you see other images like this, where you have the mix of these little chambers, which is what you'd expect to see, potentially with a catacomb or a crypt, at least what we've been conditioned to expect. But then you have these other chambers, where you have the pediments, you have the decorations. So, I mean, what are we looking at here? Are we really looking at a catacomb? Or are we looking at a structure that's somehow underground. And again, I do ask the question, and I'm going back to Robert's earlier comment, are these legitimate photos of under St. Peter's Basilica? I mean, they may be, but then we have to ask, what exactly are these materials? How is this a suitable foundation for a structure that is unbelievably as heavy and as massive as St. Peter's is? Because as stated earlier, it is the most massive basilica in the land. So what's really going on here? Oh, Jamie says it. Yeah, another citadel. No doubt about it. And Kathy, underground structure. And trays, different materials. And you know what? That's kind of the story you'll get whenever you look all around Rome. Different materials at any point in time. You are correct. And then you'll have other images like this that just show you more of the traditional pottery with some odd symbols behind it. And this might be more what you expect to see. And then here we have the real money shot, though. So another little excavator going in here. Looks like he's standing in water. But what do we have here? Am I just seeing things? Is my mind playing tricks on me? Or do we have a griffin there? What do you think? Griffins weren't exactly associated with Rome, and they certainly weren't associated with the Catholic Church, or the Roman Catholic Church, as it were. But we have a griffin. Now, maybe this goat here might be something we might expect. And what's this figure supposed to be right here? Very, very strange. I mean, what are your thoughts on this little relief here? Yeah, Adam Baum summarizes it nicely. Griffins and dragons. Exactly. And you'll actually see a lot more of them as you poke around more. Maybe. Or maybe it alludes to something even before and even older, and there was a reason why the previous civilization held griffins in such high regard. You know, I mean, we just don't know. But we see it all the time. Hey, New West Reset, thanks for joining us. I'm Kairos, War of the Worlds Tripod Center. Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I mean, you got a little bit of everything here, you know, and you have to ask what exactly is going on. Were these bricks put up later around these more suitable and well-built structures? Is this something that was added later? Or is this something that survived because of the material it was constructed out of? Hard to say. Only way to know would be to go there and look in person, and I have a feeling that wouldn't be the easiest task to accomplish. And then you have more of these images, and yes, here we go with our little plaque that was clearly added later. See, we're always adding plaques to things, so just so you don't get confused on what the time frame is. Put a plaque on it, put a year on it. We'll tell you when the structure was built, and you just don't ask any questions, and that's that. Yeah, LiDAR, Officer Donut. It's kind of my feeling as well. You can only get so much. Ooh, Southern Reporter. Yeah, it does have a crematory feel to it, doesn't it? And RB, always arches. Yep, because you can't have an old world building without arches. Oh, Petty, they're or a pizza oven. Yeah, it could well be. You want one of those classic pizzas. When was it found? Good question, Kathy. They say they were aware of it from the 1st to the 3rd century, forgot about it, built the church on top of it, and then they excavated again in the 1940s and 1950s. That's the official story. Take it or leave it. Now here we have another one of these interesting mosaics. And again, what's missing from this mosaic? Now, I could potentially see this being a depiction of Jesus Christ, but who knows? Could be something else entirely. Very, very great detail on the leaves, you know, and I think this is why this is something I would like to explore in person to really get an idea of what we're looking at here. You know, these flying horses, are they on a chariot? What exactly is going on? What is missing from the rest of this mosaic? Just don't know. And here is where we get our first skulls, confirmed skulls. Don't worry, we're going to be seeing a lot more of them. Now, why would someone just leave a couple skulls hanging out in what's supposed to be a very revered and respected necropolis, or a place where we actually bury people? What's the question on that, and what's the answer? Why would we have skulls down here? Lisa B., how did they forget, especially when they hold so many years ancient documents? Weird. Yes, and it's a recurring theme, Lisa. It's a recurring theme. They do have the documents, at least they say they do. Oh, Kathy is leaning forward on it. Trophies. Cynthia, I don't think Jesus will be caught dead there. No, probably not. Brown dwarf welcome sign. No doubt about it. Donna Marie, were there bee skulls there? BBS. Yeah, I don't know. Officer Donut, now that's a good question. Do we actually have skeletons under our skin? Don't know. I haven't looked under my skin. Got an x-ray, but, you know, who knows what that tells you. Now, this is a very interesting image because this almost points back to what you would think to be the Roman origins, at least as we're informed, of the necropolis of the Basilica of St. Peter's, or St. Peter's Basilica, however you want to say it. But this, again, is one of these very finely formed images. And you look at the detail on this, and look, it looks like we actually have eyes on this, unlike all those other statues we looked at all the Roman emperors. So let me get this straight. They couldn't make good and lasting eyes on the statues of the Roman emperors, but on this particular character, whoever this is supposed to be, they could make eyes, and they could make a very fine, detailed face. I don't know, this is one of the few, do you want to call it a sculpture, or maybe I should just say works of art, that actually match some of the detail that we've seen in Mount Rushmore. I mean, it's really hard to find that kind of detail. Of course, you'd find it here. But who is this figure, and what's this really representing? I mean, yeah, they'll tell us it's some distant martyr to Christendom or the Roman Catholic Church, but who is it really? Do you take it at face value or do you question it? Ah, yes, Aether Topologist. I do have that feeling myself. Ah, Victor Black. Dane, Dolph Lundgren. May as well be, for all the detail we have. RB, that's the centaur. That's what he looked like up close. Good one. Half of a bookend. Yeah, could be that too. Ooh, Grocker 76, non-human. Maybe. All things we need to keep in mind. And then there's other images that they released from their excavation. And again, it kind of gives you conflicting account because look at this figure. And again, you can see the eyes on this figure, but just strange details. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to make out of it, but it's really interesting because it doesn't look like all the other figures that we have that are attributed to the artwork of the Roman time period, does it? There are some subtle differences and some unique nuances that you can see. And so that's why I wonder, where exactly are we? Are we directly under the Basilica of St. Peter? Or is it something else? And they say this is the tomb of St. Peter. He was actually found, and they did verify it later. Pius XII didn't, but Paul VI did, the subsequent pope in the 60s. So really, what to make of it? Petty Lee looks like he's missing headphones. Yeah, that's not all. Julia, that looks oddly like a 20th century still life. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Vaughn is going out and saying it's somewhere else. And that's what I don't wonder on this. Because here's the thing, you have a lot of catacombs under Rome. And don't worry, we're going to be looking at them. Legendary Egghead. Yeah, I could see that. Robert Iacco, someone's old house. Yeah, maybe. Ooh, RB, human hybrid. I don't wonder. And that's kind of the thing that we look at and we see with this. The mystery behind it. Where exactly is this? Now, is there not some very interesting imagery that we have here? What do we have here? And nobody better say the current star on the Minnesota state flag. Okay, that's not funny. But apparently this is another portion of the necropolis. And yet you can see there's a lot more fine detailed construction within this. Now I really wish we could have gotten this colorized because I'd be very interested to see what kind of coloring we have to these structures. And what is this really? In a black and white photo, you're kind of left to guess. Although even if it was colorized, I'd still be left guessing. But you get the impression there's a lot more opulence and detail we're just not seeing in this. I mean, what is this figure right here? Sky Sage, definitely a crypt. Oh, RB, looks like the elevator in your favorite building. Yeah, there are a lot of overlapping symbols, aren't there? And isn't it funny how the true story behind St. Peter's might be the same true story behind my favorite building, right? Trey's the Morning Star. Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, this is the layout that they've done. And here you can actually see where the original racing track was for the horses. And right next to where St. Peter was killed, and apparently he was buried right where he was killed, at least that's what the account says, or very close to it. And so this was the original racetrack, and then they built St. Peter's over here. Now, who knows about any of the veracity of this? Because if you go to Rome, yes, it's very true. There are layers upon layers built on top of layers. So it's possible. I'm not saying it's not. I'm never going to say that the official account is impossible. It's just very unlikely. And for whatever reason, it comes up as very unlikely when you look at this. Who is this figure supposed to be? This is supposed to be a mosaic of St. Peter himself, but at this point, this could really be anybody. St. Peter, Mel Gibson, or somebody with very bushy, dark eyebrows. Could even be David Strathairn for all you know. But I just have no idea. But these are the kind of things that they'll attribute to these details, and they just don't know what's going on. Philip I, President of Rome. Yeah, why not? Jamie, it's all snake and mirrors. Could be Abe Lincoln. Yeah, why not? There was that time he went to Rome. Albie Belt, that is Peter. And it could be Peter. It's just hard to tell who it may be. You don't have the detail in it. They say it's Peter. And then here you can actually see another comparison. Now this is a diagram. This isn't the map, but this diagram is more accurate, although how they tell that, I don't know. Where you have the Circus of Nero, as the track was originally called, and then you have the layout of where St. Peter's Basilica is, and where you've got St. Peter's tomb currently. And then they even indicate that tombs were destroyed by Elagabalus. Yeah, I don't really care for that name. I got into a lot of arguments about Elagabalus when I was still teaching, so it's kind of funny. Namely, what evidence do we have? Never mind, I'm not going to go into it. It distracts. But here's the best part. So they say the obelisk that they brought from Egypt was originally here in the middle of the racetrack, or the Circus of Nero. And then, they moved it way out in front of St. Peter's Basilica. Because, why not? Moving an obelisk, that's an easy thing. Especially one from Egypt that you apparently dug out of the ground. And that's the official account on that. Now, you also have this other oddity where you have Pope Pius XI, the predecessor to Pope Pius XII, and he's actually buried right underneath in this necropolis himself. And this is actually his crypt. And isn't this interesting? What do we have here on the crypt? Are these eagles? Odd. Since when was the Roman Catholic Church into eagles? Very strange, don't you think? I think the Roman Empire was Prussian and Celtic. Well, at this rate, it may as well be. Yeah, it does have a bit of a creepy vibe to it, doesn't it, Donna? Ah, Petty's on it again. More griffins. I don't wonder. Dane, Pizza the Hut. Yeah, look far enough, you might find his crypt, too. Well, you always need to have chains there to make sure nobody actually goes up and touches it. So you got your retention chain right there. So, again, who really knows what's going on with all this? And here you can see some of the mosaics, and these mosaics look a little bit closer to what we may expect to see, but some of the rest of these, I just don't know. Definitely something we're going to have to take a look at. And yet then you have other accounts of even more well-adorned, decorated, and opulent rooms that are technically in the necropolis. So this isn't on the main floor of St. Peter's, this is below it. And this is probably what you'd expect to see. Something that actually has a foundation that can really hold up that structure. And again, look at some of the finery and the detail here. Ah, yes, of course. And these are not the easiest of images to come by. I'll just let you know that. NPC, similar to a circuit board, a mystery machine. Yeah, it does give that feeling, doesn't it? And Scott, feeling grand yet dark. Does look like it's all gold, doesn't it? And not painted gold either. But remember, as we learned, it's cheaper to use real gold than to paint things gold. Yes, they've actually said that. New Westry said, St. Peter's sure has a nice basement. Fancy. Yeah, now that's a basement you think you could live in, right? All right, I think we are just about through the necropolis. So you go from this, then to this, which is also part of the official necropolis. Clearly, this is supposed to be in the lower levels, although who knows for sure. And you have an odd assortment of images here. You know, again, is this reflecting the actual Roman history, or is this something else? The deeper you dig, the stranger things you find, right? And what is going on with the ceiling up here? We actually have figures here in the pillars, if that's what you want to call these decorative pillars. I don't know. This almost reminds me of that scene from Beneath the Planet of the Apes, when Brent and Nova went down there and they encountered the remaining humans, or the mutant humans. Not one of the better Planet of the Apes movies, but you know what? I still prefer it over any of the modern ones. But that's just me, okay? That's just me. Statues of dead people. Yeah, maybe. Who knows for sure. All right. Well, that's it for the images of what is officially St. Peter's Basilica and the necropolis underneath it. But we have more things we're going to be looking at. And we're going to be looking at the Catacombs of Rome, because remember, we have an entire city there. Ooh, Trays, that's a good one, yeah. The ceiling does look like wet concrete, doesn't it? The notorious Mr. D. Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes was a good attempt. Yeah, Tim Burton probably would have been better suited just to demand writing the screenplay himself. Just my opinion. But yes, agreed. Donna Marie, in a Roman bathhouse in the United Kingdom, they found some of the purple, very intoxicating. That would be a jamming spot. Yeah, and it's interesting what they find and where. Oh, thanks, RB. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go on a quick break, 2-minute break, and we're going to transition to look at the Catacombs of Rome. So this is the last image of the official necropolis below St. Peter's. But prior to going on break, let me get up one of those images of the Catacombs of Rome. And it probably will suit your expectations. And it's a little creepy, so it's not too bad. You know, I've shown creepier images. But when you look at this, and we'll just lead this off before we go on break, I want you to really look at these catacombs, and these are the official catacombs. Now, it doesn't really matter which one, because does anybody know how many catacombs they have around Rome? There's quite a few. We'll just look at a couple examples. But think about how much trouble, Philip I, sleeping bunks. It's actually what it looks like more than catacombs, doesn't it? Think about how much trouble they went through before they could actually be prepared to use these catacombs. Something is missing, the organ machine. Actually, it's funny you say that. Funny and disturbing at the same time, because we do have images that tell us a little bit differently. Kathy. Looks like a rib cage. All right, well, prior to going on break, here's a thought I'm going to leave you with. And that is, there was actually a movie that we talked about quite recently, and I think I talked about it in one of the more recent explorations, that used these catacombs as an inspiration to design the interior of something. So we'll go on break, and we'll see you in 2 minutes. And before we go on break, just be sure you hit that like button and support the channel. And I appreciate everyone being here. And we're really getting to it. So we're going to look at the Catacombs of Rome. Then we're going to look at the secret archives of the Vatican. And then we're going to talk about the theories that we have. So hit that like button. We'll go on a 2-minute break. I'll put on the Monty Python music for you, and we'll go to the catacombs. Okay, and we are back. I'll give everybody a chance to get back on. And we're going to be taking a look at the Catacombs of Rome. Now, this is where we start to get into the difficult area. And what I told you to talk or think about while I was gone is, what film did this inspire? Well, there's a statement that the set designer and the visualist for the film Fire in the Sky, that was an alien abduction movie from 1993, D.B. Sweeney and Robert Patrick back in the day. Ah, yes, a lot of people forgot about D.B. Sweeney. Anyway, they designed the entire interior of the alien ship. It was based on the inspiration of these catacombs. And you might recall, if you've seen that movie, some rather terrible things happened during that abduction scene. Now, I can't recommend the movie because the rest of it tended to be a little bit of a disrupted waste of time, but the alien abduction scene and then the scene on the ship was really good. So watch it for that, if nothing else. Now, this is what we'd expect to see with catacombs. At least this is what's put in our mind. But I want to ask you, how much trouble would somebody have to go to? How much logistical trouble to actually dig out these catacombs? First to dig out the tunnels, but then to dig out each of the so-called burial chambers. Why would anybody do something like that? Yeah. Jamie summarizes it very nicely. It was terrifying. Oh, and thanks for that, New West Reset, and welcome to the new members. I appreciate that. Brendan Wood, they look like body-length shelves. Yeah, they do, don't they? But then you have certain images from lost works such as this. Now, you don't necessarily need to speak Italian or Latin to translate this. Subterranean Rome. But what they show here are a couple people that are actually being taken and put into these chambers. At least that's what this image shows you. But is that what's really happening here? Are they really handling the dead? There's some very disturbing things when you look into the details on this as well. Because what exactly is this representing here? On the right and on the left? I mean, is there something much more morbid going on than initially meets the eye? Something much more morbid than death and dealing with the dead? And when you look at some of the details in these images, they always seem to paint different pictures than what we might expect. Ah, I think we have a fascist there. Why not? So what do you think is going on? What do you think these tombs, these catacombs really represent? Can we get details from this image? What does it point to? RB, being cooked and eaten. Yeah, maybe. And maybe in a way we don't understand. Sky Sage, wizards in robes. Yeah, you see a lot of that too. Jamie Griffin, yeah, bring out your dead. And remember what that scene was famous for. I'm not dead yet. Okay, well, I'm not going to hesitate. So you have all these shelves, and then you have this drawing that shows you what's happening to people who may or may not be dead. Yes, who knows for sure. It's very disturbing what may be going on here. But then, of course, in these catacombs, yes, you have it, your classic death shrine. The death shrine. In other words, our trophy. Because why else would somebody arrange all these skulls and all these bones? And as if it's not enough that they went to all the trouble to dig out these tunnels, dig out each of these crypts, at least that's what we're told they are, then they went to the trouble of removing all the remaining flesh from these bodies, and then nicely stacking these bones. Now, how much effort and time went into that? And why would anybody bother with that, first and foremost? I am Cairo, stripped, dried, and clean. Ooh, piezoelectric bone power plant. Yeah, that's one explanation. And there's a lot of evidence that supports that, too. Or it could be a much darker explanation for all we know. Polly Dibs, I'm sure they had a lot of time down there. And so there's a couple different theories. We'll get to it. Christy, it's a big trophy room. Yeah, that's kind of the feeling you get when you look at it. And so this is why you really don't have to dive around with any theories. It's right here for all to see. I mean, the bones are still there. They didn't even move the bones. And you've got other images where you have some more morbid depictions of the bones. I mean, who does this? We're supposed to respect and venerate the dead. Does this look like it's respecting and venerating the dead? No, it looks like it's quite the opposite of that. And then you have these other odd images here and these other odd statues or sculptures or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sure, somebody carved that. Okay, if you say so. And what the heck is this representing? And this is from one of the catacombs below Rome. I mean, this is just really strange when you look at this. You get all these images and these ideas of horrific suffering. Yeah, Day of the Dead is right. RB, that's one crazy art project. Yeah, I mean, who would even put their time into doing something like that? Oh, Robert, fear and torture. And this goes back to the theory of these underground catacombs actually being part of a massive orchestrated trap happening right before the reset as a way to get a lot of people out of the way. That may have been one thing that happened, or it could have been something like you see with the vaults in the Fallout series. Of course, I'm referring to the gaming series because that's the series that came up with the idea, at least maybe. And they brought the people down here and they thought they were going to be safe from whatever was coming, and they were anything but safe. They did things to them. Whether that was experimentation, whether that was killing, who knows? You know, a lot of different possibilities may have happened. But the bones are all still there. The bones are there. They're arranged in this very disturbing way. And then you have these statues that show suffering. So this really starts to overlap quickly. There's really no conspiracy here unless you're trying to come up with a conspiracy theory to explain why you have all these things in the same place. Well, we got bones, we got pictures of suffering, we got statues of suffering, but I don't think it was suffering. I think it was just a catacomb where they buried people. Okay. Yeah. Now who's reaching, right? Hey, Jay, good to see you. Yeah, probably a lot of both, no doubt about it. Well, and yeah, you know, Mr. Something Else, I'm always reminded of that episode Clues from Star Trek The Next Generation where Data has been ordered to lie and he's trying to come up with explanations and it always feels like he's reaching. So that's what this seems like. Yeah, Rod Tack. I mean, billions, who knows? It might even be more than that with the skulls and the skeletons and the pieces of skeletons. And here you can see the rest of that image, and this is where this really gets horrific. I mean, who even does something like this? And we have seen this in other locations before, the so-called ossuaries. And no, I don't think they filmed any scenes from Dungeons and Dragons here. So no Jeremy Irons hamming it up. You know, I mean, when you go back and you watch that movie, and I'll just call it as it is, that wasn't exactly the best of movies. The best reason to watch it is Jeremy Irons hamming it up. But think about this. He's actually filming the scene in front of these real bones. And here we are in Rome, and I mean, what's with this skeleton up here over this? What is this really showing? In a catacomb. Oh, Paulie with a good comment there. Almost a symbolic hell underneath a symbolic heaven. Yeah, maybe. Or perhaps a corruption of it even, if you will. Yes, a corruption of heaven. Imagine that. And Cynthia Wood, they've been harvesting us for thousands of years. Well, could definitely get that impression from this image. There's no doubt about it. Oh, Jamie, Demiurge worship. That could well be too. Oh, TL Spud, as above, so below. So all the symbolism is right here for us to see. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And this is how they have some of these catacombs marked. And I mean, you know, up on the surface, it seems very innocuous, very innocent. Like, oh, catacomb, let's go take a look. You know, and then you get down there. Yeah, lots of bones, lots of statues and suffering. Maybe it's not so much fun. I don't know. Now, you can also get an idea of some of the other layouts of these catacombs, and this is closer to the surface, apparently, for access. But then you still have the arches. You still have the fine geometric precision. It's just made out of bricks. It also looks like the, wait for it, Aurelian walls. They're made the same way. And you'll notice that. But then you, again, have the very odd artwork in these catacombs. I mean, what the heck is this showing? Superman trying to escape some nasty dragon that's biting him on the butt? I mean, I don't know. And there's all kinds of odd artwork like that. Yeah, lovely, lovely catacombs. That's right. I am Kairos. Brixels again. Well, yeah, you can never have enough of those. Paulie, any theories or claims about how these tunnels were even built? Nah, they just say that they dug them out over a long period of time. You know, they had a lot of money. Ooh, J, chimera. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, sadistic. Ooh, Kathy, merman. Yeah, it does kind of look like a merman, doesn't it? Lori with the best question here. How did they build all the tunnels everywhere? Great question, Lori. Don't know. Ooh, Jamie, yeah, serpents eating men. Going back to that old depiction again. And then there's even more ornate skull arrangements. Yeah, I mean, what exactly is with this? And then just all the time, and remember, these are all human bones that you're seeing here. So someone took all the time to do this. And yet, for some reason, this is also left standing. Well, we got to preserve history. If it was in the United States, it'd be on the National Register of Historic Places. Technically, no, I'm not going to say it because I'll get the video in trouble, but yeah, I think you follow where I'm going with it. Then you also have these other arrangements of bones. Crypts and Catacombs of Rome. So, I mean, the first part of the exploration, we just looked at St. Peter's alone. Now we're looking at the whole city. And yeah, as I think it was Rod Tack said, how many bones are there? Millions? Billions? I mean, it really gets disturbing when you start to look at it. Chassis, I thought human bones turned to dust after so long. One would expect that, but that's not the situation that we get, is it? Barbara, it'd be a state park. Who knows? Maybe it is. Oh, Victoria, maybe it's more recent than we think. That could be too. And that's probably one of the more disturbing possibilities. Great comment there. Yeah, exactly. Maybe not as long ago. Because remember, it seems as though everyone wants us to think there's a lot of time. It's been hundreds of years, it's been thousands of years, but these bones, this might not have been so long ago. And here's another one of these interesting images here. Human being devoured by something. Giant serpent bunny rabbit. Maybe this is where the killer rabbit of Carbong came from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Carabong, I'm not saying that correct, but that's okay. And then some of the other images in these catacombs, and you get the hint of some of the artwork, but who knows how this has been changed. And it's a great consideration. How old is it? What's it really reflecting? Iliad, maybe 300-ish years, yeah. Well, thank you, New West Reset. I greatly appreciate that. And definitely looking forward to more of your impression on these things in the future. The Vorpal Bunny. Yeah, it sounds like a new antagonist. Maybe that'll be the next Doctor Who villain when Doctor Who gets brought back by Disney for another season. Who knows? Who knows? Ooh, Vaughn. Yeah, legend. That's a great film. Back when Ridley Scott really made the good films, too. Not that I'm saying he doesn't anymore. And then you have other interesting looks like this. You know what I mean? This could be Rome. This could be China. I've seen these kind of layouts all over the place in catacombs and crypts. So again, who knows what this is really reflecting? And maybe this is really the oldest part for all we know, but we don't know. Who knows what forces these have been subjected to? Oh, here you have the three fates, past, present, future, or maybe something else. Again, the strange artwork that's in these catacombs. Well, good, Sydney. I'm glad you're laughing and having a good time. I know this can be a little bit of a heavy topic, so I'm trying to lighten it up a little bit. Space Fraggle, communion with the dead. Yeah, no doubt about it. Lori Russell, nope, not stacking all those. It is sad. RB, those pics of the old cities with empty streets make me wonder. You and me both. And that's where you have to ask that question, where did the people go? What happened to them? Well, we may be getting a lot of clues here. Here's another one of these images from these older books. Now, these books are stated to have been composed during the Middle Ages, which, remember, they weren't such a dark period. Okay, it was just stated that. But you get the idea that these catacombs or these crypts or tombs may have been more ornate. And why do we have the impression they have a different purpose than what we're told? I mean, what the heck's going on here? Were they playing hockey? I have no idea. Really, really odd. And again, just a drawn picture, so who knows how accurate it is. But then also some of the imagery that was taken from these sarcophaguses. These crypts that they had. Very, very strange. What exactly are we doing here? Just a lot of symbolism that, I mean, I'm at a complete loss to even try to speculate on. You can look at it and try to interpret it, but, you know, what's it really mean? It's just about as alien as that ship was in Fire in the Sky. No wonder they looked to here to inspire that ship in Fire in the Sky, huh? You know, and I don't even know if the details on that match up, but it is odd to me how much it looks alike. And then you'll get some other images like this, and this does kind of match that first image that we saw from the necropolis underneath St. Peter's. But again, you know, what's this material? I have not personally been to this one, so I don't know. I mean, it looks like this was all formed and carved or cut out. Again, we have fine arches. I mean, if you look hard enough, you'll see the details. So were they eroded by something? Was this subjected to some horrifying forces that we can't fully understand? Just don't know. Yeah, Victor, you're right. That's probably exactly what they'd tell us it is now, is limestone. But just remember, you know, if you have a limestone retaining wall, just a small section of it that breaks, it's prohibitively expensive to replace it, even with our modern technology. Julia, original Olympics were done nude. Yeah, that's what they say. That'd have been interesting, huh? Oh, Vaughn, sarcophagus, sarcophon, coffin for a king, pharaohs. Paulie, and who was the artist that designed all this great work? Yeah, good question on that. Brendan Wood, or nature is geometrically configured and they just use the energy to guide them. Oh, thanks, Robert. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is a great one. And then here you have somebody actually looking at all these bones, skulls. Now, I've personally, full disclosure, I've only been to one ossuary, and I swore never to go to one again because it was very disturbing to me. But, you know, again, that's just me. I'm not judging people. I know a lot of people are just told, hey, these are great tourist attractions. Go look at them and enjoy yourselves. But for me, there's just something very disturbing to think that every single one of these skulls, every single one of these bones belong to a real human being. So, I don't know. It's one of those things that maybe I think about a little bit too much. But then you'll also find in what they call the private catacombs, this very odd assortment of skulls. And I mean, this is where you get the idea that a lot more suffering may have occurred. And these are probably a little bit more difficult for me to look at personally. You know, I don't know if they're more difficult for you to look at, but I thought I'd include them because, yeah, they're part of the catacombs. You know, and it paints a much darker picture. Wendy, creepy people are touching those bones. Yeah, that's right. And Jamie, how could you concentrate on anything with wangers flying around everywhere? Yeah. Scott Pike, only a demon would create art with human remains. Yeah, it's not something I can imagine anybody doing. You know, you do a painting, you can do a representation, you can use clay, but to use the actual bones, yeah, I mean, it's disturbing. There's no two ways about it. And then I saved this for last with these catacombs. So you also have some of these more well-adorned skulls, skeletons, that are actually jewel encrusted. Now, what the heck is going on here? And ideas on this. And first and foremost, who was even aware of this? Because a lot of people I talk to, and when I've talked to people about what's in the catacombs, they're not aware that there's actually skeletons that are, how do we say, adorned like this. Yeah, Albie, that was my first impression. Yeah, there we go, Crom. And I'm not wondering if, you know, that was kind of something that inspired that as well. RB. Yeah, I guess you're right, RB. Certainly not something I do, but, you know, I'm not going left or right on any of those opinions, but, yeah. Hey, Spirit, good question. I don't know in this particular case. Yeah, very bejeweled. So was this a figure that represented somebody who was important in the previous civilization and somehow they managed to protect the skeleton? Or is it a figure who was corrupted? You know, I don't know. I mean, you can look at some of the symbolism, and maybe we need a new branch of symbology to study this symbolism. But who knows? I mean, it could go either way on this one. Although, we just don't know what happened in the past. And maybe this is left up as yet another bit of a trophy, if you will. But who knows? I could be wrong. Why would you go to all this trouble to decorate a skeleton or a corpse like this? And then you can also get this feeling of claustrophobia when you go through some of these catacombs and these crypts. And so, again, you have to ask the question, was that so when people were put in these chambers? Because there are other accounts that say that they were put in the chambers alive. And you might remember there's several stories from certain famous authors that talk about people being buried alive. There's a term for it. I'm not going to say it because that'll get us all kinds of attention that I don't want. Julia S. Decorating ancestors. Yeah, that's one way to put it. And Joe, bones and jewels are both meaningless when the spirit is eternal. And I would certainly agree with that, Joe. I would certainly agree with that. Christy, maybe we don't want to know. And maybe there are some things we're not meant to know. And this could be a good example. And this is another really odd image, some of the odd artwork in the catacombs. I mean, what exactly is this representing? I'm not even going to give you my impressions on this one. I mean, what do you think of this? I'd like to get your opinion on this one because, I mean, this is just really, really strange to me. What is this representing? Claustrophobia, try living on a Navy ship. Yeah, it's pretty cramped. Try hanging out in an M1A1 tank for a couple months. We'll see, Oh, Sky Sage, yeah. Cannibals. David, to sin and enjoy this material world. Huh. Anne-Marie Miller. What is the person in the sky presenting? An offering, it looks like? Huh. Kathy. How are we all going to fit in that little building? Oh, and Kathy might have happened upon it. So is there some sign or portent of doom? There's some terrifying event coming and we all need to get in here because this is where we're going to be safe. And then once you go into here, then you go to the catacombs and, we had the book earlier that showed you what happened to all the people that just walked down there on their own free will. Was there even any kind of reset? Or was it just something they were told that happened? And they all got told to go to the underground. You'll be safe in the underground. And then we know what happened to them in the underground. And then once all the people were out of the way, maybe that's when they impose the physical destruction. I mean, who knows? You have different clues that tell you different things. Or, again, it could just be a work of art. A very disturbing work of art, but, that could be all it is. Yes, RB. Followers, groupthink. Such a powerful component, isn't it? Well, thank you, Sydney. I hope you're enjoying this live. Definitely a good topic. And then again, on the actual so-called crypts themselves, you have more of this fine detail. And what's this representing? Is this representing an entirely different group of people? And what's this figure here on the side? This is definitely something I'd like to see in person. But again, when you look closer up here, you might recall that there's certain symbols that also appeared on my favorite building. I mean, what is this? Really, really odd. You have this one coloring, this one type of material here, but then you have this other coloring. And then you also have some odd masks down here. Very strange. And what is this made out of? Is this marble? Is this something else? Just another one of these odd images that come out of these catacombs. Barbara. Yeah, it may be carved from bone for all we know. Wendy, I mean, it had to mean something. We just don't have any idea what it means, so. Yeah, the three with their heads turned. And I mean, we could put a lot of different analysis into this, and who do these people represent? Are these representing the people that were being told that they would be safe, or do these actually represent the last representatives of the previous civilization who didn't go along with it? I mean, we just don't know. What the heck is this creature? I'd like to see it a little bit better. I'll have to see if I can find some other images of this, but this is the best I can do. And then you also have this, where you have examples of more elaborate construction, especially in the ceiling here, leading down into these crypts and these tombs. And so this is why I'm of the mindset that when they constructed these places, where they repurposed from other buildings maybe, were they actually remnants of even earlier structures from a previous era that got repurposed? Who knows? There's all kinds of possibilities on the table. But you get the impression that they wanted to make them look welcoming. Oh yeah, come down here. You'll be safe. Now that's just my read on it. I could be completely wrong. They just decorated it because, they respected the dead so much. Sure, they respected the dead so much that they decided to arrange their bones in a nice, morbid fashion. Because that's what you do when you respect the dead, right? The detail on this is pretty stunning. Polly, now why is it always an octagonal ceiling? Good question. I think you may be correct there, Anne-Marie. And we got an exploration coming up. We're really going to examine that in detail. Marie, repurposing old buried buildings, yes. And if they had all those and the people saw comfort in them, then why not? James, nuclear winter shelters. Then they had to eat each other to survive? Yeah, it could have come down to that. Who knows what exactly happened? Officer Donut, yeah, it's a trap. Where's Admiral Akbar? It's a trap. And then in some of the other catacombs, you get representations such as this. Supposedly the more important people who were buried. Got a couple arrows here in the body, and then this very elaborate crypt or tomb. Oh, and I didn't get it in the image because it doesn't go up high enough. But yes, that is our familiar cartouche that we see all over the place. And then, of course, you just have certain churches or cathedrals that are over the catacombs, and they look like this. So again, it definitely begs the question, are we looking at multiple layers of multiple eras? And that's the very crux of the 5 eras theory right there. Circular floor tiles. There's always something underneath. Yeah, that seems to be a truth. Yeah, and this is the kind of intricacy that you'll see with these catacombs and these crypts. So, Anne-Marie, I think the windows perhaps were not closed off at one time. No, probably not. And then just to show you this, they inform us that there were crypts and catacombs for everybody of all faiths. That's what they tell us. So, you had the Christian catacombs, you had the Jewish catacombs, and yes, you have you have so many Islamic catacombs when you go to the Middle East too. Everybody's got catacombs. Seems to be something everybody was into. Again, if you take the official history at face value. So anyway, all in the Roman area. So if you get there, yeah, maybe you want to check out some catacombs. Now, give me 1 second here. Would you like to see a map? At least a sketch map of what these catacombs might look like. It's a little bit more intricate than you might think. And coming up right now. So yeah, what do you think about that? This is just one set of catacombs. You can see the Appian Way right over here. Yeah, just a little complex, don't you think? What's that look like to you? Oh yeah, always seeing a map's a good thing, isn't it, Polly? Now, I wonder how long it would take us just to poke around and find our way around these. Yeah, Kathy's right. And you are correct. It is a city. Total city, underground city. So maybe something from an earlier era, or maybe something that was built to be a city, underground. Yeah, I'm with Adam on this. It definitely looks more like a modern city map. And were they told that they were going to be safe here? I'm sure they had these maps and gave them to the people and said, here's where you need to flee to. And then here's another one. And so if you don't have these maps, if you don't have any idea what you're doing down there, you can quickly see how these can become labyrinths, random dead ends, and, like maybe you work your way down this passage. Oh boy, how do I find my way out? Yeah, they're a lot more complicated and a lot more complex than we like to think. Yeah, Polly, I don't know if that would help. Anyways, okay. Well, that's it for the Catacombs of Rome. we're going to take a quick look at the secret Vatican archives. Because I had a feeling you might want to see something that's secret, and yes, they fully admit that these archives are secret. Now, before we go into those images, does anybody know what the official name of the secret Vatican archives actually is? And we start with this very sinister-looking staircase. Oh, yeah, it's always a spiral staircase, isn't it? Now, let's see if anybody mentioned it. Chemical General, what if they were not underground when built? Very possible. In some cases, very likely, depending on which underground we're looking at. Fairy Girl, Devil's Portal. No, not quite that obvious about it, but you do have to wonder. Stabulator, how did you get into the secret vault? Well, it's one of those things, Stabulator, where they call it secret, but it's not really so secret, if you follow. Archivium Secretum Vaticum. That's a good one, New West Reset. Okay, well, I'll tell you at the end. But anyway, this is one of the stairways. Let's see if we see any of the usual suspects in the symbols here. Yeah, we got some odd things. It's almost like I see some nagas, some snakes. Maybe I'm just seeing things, I don't know. Not exactly the best image, but you know what happens if I show too high quality images sometimes of certain things, so. But anyway, in the secret archives, you have all these works that go on as far as the eye can see. Now, we'll look at the exterior of this because it's one of those deceptive things. It's kind of like the TARDIS on Doctor Who. Oh, yeah, there you go, Polly. Lion heads. Yeah, may very much so. In the classic tradition, too. Good one, I am Kairos. No, they better not call it that. Yeah, this is the reading room. I guess you have to have a very nice, well-ordained, well-decorated reading room. Although, again, some of these images, you have to ask, what's this representing? Just incredible lighting and incredible beauty. And then the numerous scrolls that they have, documents, depositories. What do they really say on them? What knowledge do they have? Well, apparently they don't have the knowledge of when and where St. Peter was exactly buried, but they'll tell you everything else, apparently. Don't know for sure. But then you have all these interesting old-bound books that are there as well. Now, do these books actually have what's stated on them? What's the contents? A lot of times they'll tell you, well, it's just referring to law, because we always have so many law books. But is that really what the case is? Actually, you might find hundreds or thousands of more. I'm not saying that you will, just suggesting it's possible. That's true too, Officer Donut. It could be that. Polly almost looks like a mix of Hebrew and Latin. And it might be. You'll see all kinds of anomalies there. And yet, books from every time frame, bound from every time frame. And for our recent exploration, one of our historians told us that the best ways that we lose history is because books simply aren't copied. Well, you'll find all kinds of different works in this archive in different states of repair or disrepair, as it may be. How old is this paper? Another question I have is, why isn't it protected a little bit better? This is an official image. Now, I have not seen anything like this personally, but apparently they have lots of archives there. So who knows what they really have? Wendy, stolen loot. Yeah, may well be. Oh, that's a good point there. Yeah, what kind of smell would you get from that? Now, it gets even more interesting. Then you have these random symbols and then different figures that come up. Now, you can certainly attribute this to a different form of communication, another written form. I'm not going to say what it may look like. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions, but you do see these in certain areas. And what do they really represent? Well, in simple terms, I don't know. I can guess. I'm not going to guess today. But I just thought I would share it with you. Because as somebody said, maybe we're not supposed to know everything. Yeah, it's a heck of a reading room. And then just, some of the artwork that they have. I mean, what's it representing? What is this all about? Guy with a red cape with, I don't know, cherubs on him? Hard to say. Really, really strange. And funny you talk about the Voynich manuscript. Not the same language, but does look similar, doesn't it? And then there's all kinds of quote-unquote theories for what the Vatican may represent or what can happen there if you go too far in the secret archives. And what sort of things you might be summoning. And then, of course, just some of the treasures that you have. Yes, of course. That whole debate on, if the Catholic Church should actually have material goods or possessions. Should do a show on codified imagery. Yeah, Jamie, I'm probably going to get to that at some point. But it's just interesting seeing all these archives that they have. And here's where you have, I don't exactly know what the heck happened to these. I mean, what is this supposed to represent? Chewed up paper? Is it all tied together? It's really, really peculiar. And of course, this is in your basement, where you'll probably find the Ark of the Covenant. Joking, but who knows? Yeah, everything's melting in this one, Sky Sage. The paper, all of it. Yep, there you go. It is old-fashioned bookbinding. Very old-fashioned bookbinding. Yet, oddly enough, somehow those books survived. They shouldn't have survived those, should they? At least if they're as old as they say. Yeah, so just a lot more questions. And different manuscripts, different seals. And who knows what the actual compendium of knowledge is here. A lot of hints, though, that it's a lot, but as I've explored before, a lot of it may be here, and a lot of it may be spread across the land, because why would you keep all your eggs in one basket? Oh, and, of course, it wouldn't be a real place without the checkerboard floor. This is technically part of the Vatican Museum. And then some of these other incredible books, 1840, 1840, 1841. Is that a year? Oh, I don't know. Someone tried telling me about Julian date on one of the comments, and I asked, well, what Julian year is it? Because, even if you have an I or a J, the Julian year is still a 4-digit year, but whatever. Maybe they'll answer me in the comments. I'm kind of curious. And you also have these interesting works. So different kinds of books here. Larger books, binded differently. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hubs. Sure, it's a coincidence. Yeah, and who knows what's really in these books? What kind of knowledge do they contain? Oh yeah, no doubt about it. It could prove that there's an entirely different dating system. Who knows? Yeah, what kind of knowledge? Couldn't tell you. I can only speculate. I have not looked through this archive personally. I would like to. I would very much like to. But I think we all would. Yeah, you're right, Brandon. Lifetime or 100 lifetimes. I am Kairos, record of the epochs. Somebody's got to have it, right? Anyways. And then you've got some of the works that seem to be guarded a little bit more, so who knows exactly what they're saying. Protected, locked up, limited access. And here it is. This is what the exterior looks like. Yeah, not exactly what you expect to see. And there's a reason why I showed you the interior first. It's very, very innocent looking. Oh, it just looks like some old buildings that have been there for a while. You'd never expect there to be secret archives in it. And here's where you actually have it. The Apostolic Library is what they call it. Yeah, it's amazing how cramped everything is in Vatican City, isn't it? How much they fit in that very small area. And then really what is in the underground. We only looked at what's purportedly under St. Peter's, but there could be a lot more for all we know. Why did Napoleon spare the Vatican, Brian asks. Who knows? Maybe Napoleon didn't really exist, or Napoleon was a renegade reset commander. Maybe he never really wanted to destroy the Vatican. It's It's kind of odd, though, because a lot of people spared the Vatican. Basically, everybody, if you look in the official history. So maybe there's something significant about it. Although, on the other hand, they say it wasn't spared. I suppose it just depends on your perspective. All right. So, let's go to the final part of our exploration. Theories of the necropolis and theories of the Vatican. Because quite frankly, we stay on here, we could be here talking all night. Not that I'd mind that, but... So, we're going to bring up what's really going on with our current theory. So, stop screen, share screen, and this image that you're looking at, this is from the Second Vatican Council. Now, the Second Vatican Council was convened by Pope Paul VI in the 1960s, because, when else would it be? And the concern for the Catholic Church at that time was that it was losing touch with humanity. It was losing touch with the new secular pursuits of humanity. And so the Second Vatican Council was about really revising all the baseline doctrines of the Catholic Church to better connect with what they call the lay people. And therefore, it happened in the early 60s. Michael, the Vatican thinks in centuries. Maybe even on a longer timeline. But who knows? Who knows what was really going on here? However, a lot of people who were historians of the Catholic Church, and it was quite a hot topic in the late 1990s, back when I was still teaching. And in the official history, they say that the Catholic Church made a hard turn after this Second Vatican Council. Now, did it, or is it just representing a hard turn? I don't know. Because prior to this, we didn't have the bones of St. Peter. After this, yes, it's the bones of St. Peter. Prior to this, we didn't have the papal auditorium. After this, Paul VI, we need to build the papal auditorium. Yes, the Paul VI papal auditorium, the building that's right next to St. Peter's. And it has a very peculiar shape to it. Now, I don't think I have to tell you what the shape of this auditorium is. It's this building right here, this trapezoid shape. Has this really interesting oval window in it. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you what it is, and I'm not going to show you pictures that compare it to what people think it looks like, because I think you can see it pretty clearly. Here's another image of it. Yes, built in the 1960s as well. Yeah, if you need someone to spell it out for you. Indeed. And you have to ask the question, could they have built it like that anymore if they tried? Here's what it looks like from above. Yeah, it's a trapezoid. What looks like a trapezoid? I don't know. And here you are from the back looking down the center of it. Boy, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, do I really even have to tell you what this looks like? And don't tell me that this is just a facet of imagination, that my mind is making me see something that's not really there. Come on. Yeah, exactly. But that's what people will say. There are people who really say that. Who really say, oh no, it doesn't look like the obvious. Now, obviously, the people that this was built for, the Pope, they saw this. They didn't say, oh my goodness, tear it down, it can't look like this. Oh no, they approved it and went with it. Oh yeah, there's different lighting schemes too. Yeah, doesn't that look really good in the red lighting scheme? Almost reminds me of another, never mind, I'm going to stop all in my head. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut here on this one. You can all clearly see what it is. I don't have to tell you. Windows are very interesting though. And they do represent something else. There's many different representations behind it. And then this is the actual opening photo when they opened the place in the 1960s. You got Pope Paul VI right there. The Pope that, one, directed the Second Vatican Council, and then two, directed the construction of this very interesting edifice. Oh, and if anybody's asking, yes, I very much think our civilization built this structure. No question about it. Yeah, a little black and white photo. Remember, we had photos that were from 10 and 20 years earlier that were colorized, but, it was the 60s, so it's hard to say. And this is about the closest thing you get to a construction photo of it, and Why is it we can't get a good construction photo even of a building like this? I don't know. But you can see the design was already apparent as they were building it. Yeah, I don't wonder, RB. I don't wonder. Yeah, I mean, why don't they just call it that? You know, I mean, you may as well. Yeah, isn't it always? And I don't wonder, F in the chat, if this photo was just put out because it's very clear that this was something that was built in our time, but then they want us to question this too. I don't know. I really don't know. Why can't you get a good image of it? And it also has a little subsurface. Yeah, isn't this interesting? Very, very strange. And then you can see some of the diagrams, and I mean, even the diagrams show you what they were getting at. Very, very odd structure. Okay, and I saved the best for last. The altar, the sculpture that is behind the Pope. And whichever Pope it is, it doesn't really matter. This little sculpture is called the Resurrection. And we'll look at the explanation of it here in a moment, but yeah. Isn't this interesting? Who has seen this sculpture before? Yeah, pretty much. And just let you share all your thoughts, you know. No, not at all, is it, Casey? No, and a lot of people don't, and I understand why. So something else that's really peculiar, well, we have this interestingly shaped building from the outside and the inside. We also have this very morbid sculpture. What don't you see in these images? That is the Pope, by the way, right there in the middle. What don't you see in any of these images? What's missing that we'd expect to see? Yeah, I mean, there's many interpretations behind it. Ah, yes. No crosses. Very, very peculiar, isn't it? No crosses, no crucifixes, nothing. Closest thing you got are the Vatican guards. Yeah, it's very, very strange. You know, now here's another rendition of that wonderful work of art. And then some of the close-ups here. And this is probably the most disturbing imagery of all. I'm not going to linger on this too long. I mean, yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on here. Now, we'll talk about this in a second. But, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just don't have any words for some things. And I think this is one of those times. And then the final look. And here's the little excerpt we have on it. The Vatican commissioned Mr. Fazzini to provide a work for its modern auditorium. Remember, this is after the Second Vatican Council. The result was the Resurrection, a statue depicting Jesus rising from a nuclear bomb crater. Suddenly, there came to me the idea of Christ preaching peace for 2,000 years, and the place where he prayed for the last time, the olive grove of Gethsemane. And yes, that's a word, and yes, I'm intentionally mispronouncing it, and it's okay. I had the idea of depicting Christ as if he were rising again from the explosion of this large olive grove, peaceful site of his last prayers. He rises from this crater, I don't see a crater, torn open by a nuclear bomb. Why a nuclear bomb? An atrocious explosion, a vortex of violence and energy. The resurrection is molded in red bronze and yellow brass and measures 66 feet by 23 feet by 10 feet. You can't make this stuff up, can you? Anyways, you just can't make it up. You know, I'm not even going to say anything more about that. So, not to linger on those images, but to go back to the original image that we have here of where this is. So, this is actually from St. Peter's. And you get the idea of St. Peter's being something very different than what this structure is down here. Yeah. And I think you're all saying it. And so here's the question we have to ask. And this is where it comes down to the final theories. This is very obvious. I mean, this is so obvious, you have to ask the question, is this a magnet? Is this to divert our attention? Is this to keep our attention fixated on this? Is it all by design? I mean, because it is so unbelievably obvious, it's not even funny. And so that's the question I've always asked. Are the answers to be found here? Or is this really just a gigantic trophy, if you will? All these remaining structures, St. Peter's, the catacombs, they're displayed as trophies, and all this is just a representation to fix our attention on it. Because how could you not? How can you possibly justify or say anything about this that makes any sense? You really don't. So I don't think I have to say anything about it. It's all very obvious. The only question here is someone just bragging, if you will, in a way? I think they are. But there could be something much more hideous than we're seeing here than meets the eye. The other thing is, it does seem clear that our eyes are supposed to be here. And even doing this little exploration, it seems clear to me that this is where we're supposed to be looking. So we'll look here, but we'll look everywhere else too. Because I'm certainly not one to keep my eyes fixed in one place, as you've probably figured out. Atom bomb, it's revealing their agenda in plain sight. Ah, yes. And isn't it amazing how many people try to justify what's revealed in plain sight? And I think there is a lot of that going on. But anyways, I will, of course, leave it to you to decide what to think about this and all the things that we looked at in this exploration. There's a lot of different details that we could follow. There's a lot of different paths that we can follow. And if you've been with the channel for a while, we have explored the libraries in detail. And it seems obvious when it comes to the libraries that we are supposed to look in certain places for the lost knowledge. However, there are hints that it is all over the place. And that's about all I can really say and reveal right now. But in any event. Okay, well, I know this exploration went a little longer, but there was a lot of great things to cover here. And, the theories. This could be something that is being shown in our face in plain sight. This could be something that's also being shown in our face and to direct our attention towards. Don't keep my secrets. I don't have any secrets. I really don't. I'm as much in the dark as all of you are. I don't have any insider knowledge. When we do these explorations, it's all about trying to ask the right questions to find the right path. Well, thanks, Heidi. I appreciate that. And no, it's not an easy topic to cover. It's really not. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this exploration. And we will continue on this next week. And before you depart, please hit the like button. And it was wonderful to see what everybody had to say. And I know I missed a lot in the chat, so I'm going to probably be spending a lot of time the next couple of days rereading it. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And this was a very interesting exploration. And I hope you have a good week, and I bid you all the best, as always. This is Lucius Aurelian, signing off.